Welcome everybody. Sorry for the late start here today. I oh, I got a new bracelet. My daughter's been making bracelets. Uh I had to reset my internet, so I am a little bit slow today. But thanks for joining us here on the Sunday Night Live. I am a little slow today. We went out for a friend's birthday last night and I was overserved, as my friend Dan would say. And I've just been a little off most of the day. That's why I don't drink too much like that anymore. Not like I was 25. So anyway, welcome. Glad to have you here on the live, and look forward to having the questions. I'm going to skip the whole intro bit since I'm a couple minutes late. Rob, good to have you. Ray from Indiana, how you doing? Kings in the City, good evening. 211, Jason, had a good weekend. Went out for an old neighbor's birthday dinner with a bunch of neighbors and previous neighbors and friends, and had a really good time. Ended up going to see an 80s rock band at a venue that I used to go to when I was 25, and we decided that we still were that age and not almost 50, and had a good time. Hopefully, Jason, you're out on the water and enjoying your center console. Sustainability, good to have you. Rob, good to have you. R Saw, how you doing? It's a new name I don't recognize. Welcome to the live. Welcome to the community. Sustainability. Haven't seen my boat in just over a week now. Only have about 30 hours on it this year compared to last year. I had about 75. Well, let's get going. The weather this year started out a little slow, and we've had a decent amount of rain here in the Carolinas, and I think that's sort of been around the country. Is there's been some weather that hasn't always cooperated. So it happens. There's years that you'll get out on a ton, and others where just things don't line up quite as well. Went to Lake Coverman, raft up Saturday. My face is a little crispy. That'll happen. That'll happen. Hopefully that was a good time. You guys all were safe and had a great time. Corey, welcome. Good to have you. Brock, good to have you. Chase Banks, welcome back. Anthony Lloyd, welcome. What are your thoughts? This is a new name I don't recognize. What are your thoughts on the Wellcraft 262? So tell me, Wellcraft 262. I'm going to pull this boat up. Tell me what year, Anthony. All right, the 262 Fisherman. Um, here is I'll tell you a quick story. I don't know this particular boat. I don't know that I've fully inspected it, but I've inspected Wellcrafts, the new 2023s, probably 2022s and 2023s. But it's a good. I'm going to say mid-tier boat. I was at the Lake Lanier boat show and was talking to a company that had Wellcraft. We don't see them here in the Carolinas. I don't know in the Charlotte area. I don't know who carries Wellcraft, if anybody right now, but they're not super well represented. When Beneteau took them over and bought the brand, they've been slowly building up their dealer network, and they in certain areas they do better than others. They've got I want to say a European look, but they got a little bit different look to them compared to most of the center consoles. You can see that bow. I'm gonna go bigger on this. You can see that bow. It's more blunt. It does the American styling is more sharper up in the bow and also a lot more flare. In the boats in my area, they call it Carolina flare. What it does is it allows you to get through the chop and really splashes that water down, out and down, on those as it's cutting through the chop. You can see that these don't have as much flare as most of them. Let's see if there's a better angle. Um, Yeah. If you look at that compared to, let's say, the Sportsman 262, I think that's 262 they've got. Yeah. So in Sportsman's probably a comparable brand. Maybe I'd put them a little bit higher on that mid tier spot. But if you look at that angle, you see how much more flare that has than what this one does. And I can't quite get the angle that I want to see if there's more there than that angle showing. But why will they? Let's see. Two. Let's see if we can find some more images here that might show us a little bit different angle. This is a little bit better. But so it depends on where you're running it. But yeah, you can see even on these, it's not a ton of flare to give you that protection. But anyway, back to the story. So I was talking to the sales guy. He was actually the general manager of this dealership, and I said, "What made you guys decide to start carrying Wellcraft?" And he said, "If the owner's son wasn't a rep for him, we wouldn't be carrying him." Essentially, he wasn't excited about the brand. He'd been out running them and he wasn't in love with it. I personally have never run one, but he knew who I was. I was there doing video, and he let me do some videos on their boats. And when a sales guy says that, the French connection with Beneteau, it can turn some people off just without any knowledge of the boat. The brand, it's a well-known brand. It's one of the top search brand names in the business, but that's because of what it was 20 years ago. The Wellcrafts of old, and it's a name boaters know because their dad and their grandpa had one. But the new generation of Wellcrafts are, there were different little things that I saw when I was expecting them that wasn't super impressed with. And then when the sales guy said that to me, it just sort of turned me off. So that's what I can share with you on those. If you go and look, and I always caveat everything I say with, that doesn't mean the boat couldn't be right for you. So if the value is there, if you're getting the price that you want, if it's a good solid dealer that's going to support you, all of those things come into play. But you might want to check out my best and worst center consoles. This was done a year ago. It's probably a year and a half now. After going to the Charleston Boat Show, so under 26 feet. So you'll see a lot of the brands. And at this point, I hadn't seen a Wellcraft because, like I said, but if there's something about that Wellcraft layout that you really like, so these are the 22 brands that I personally inspected here, and I would put the C Pro, the Sea Fox, maybe the Sportsman, probably the Key West in a category. I would look at those as well. If you've got, and maybe Robalo, if you've got a dealer in your area that supports those, you might want to check those brands out as well. And then the price makes a difference as well. So hopefully, Anthony, that is helpful for you. Let's see if you chimed in with the year. Okay. So a 2019 130 and Everglades. And Everglades is a significantly better built boat. On Boat Trader, my application, Great Lakes, larger inland lakes. Thanks for the heads up. Watch the center column. Okay, good. Yeah, it is that Everglades is a big step above for sure. 2019. Let's see here. 2019 Wellcraft. 262. Let's see it. I doubt if they made any major changes. Yeah, that's a 2017 there, 2023. They look nearly identical. And I find it interesting that they're combining the Wellcraft and the Scarab name, the Wellcraft and the Scarab brand. Scarab also had a very, very large following in the more performance boats. They tried to run it as a jet boat, and I think they still are building those jet boats, but they didn't. Yamaha jet boats have just smoked them in market share. And I find it really interesting that they're putting that Scarab badge on a Wellcraft boat. They're marrying two different brands that had their own big following. But let's see if we can click through here. And well, that's more than I thought. That if you can see that flare right there, that's more than I thought. Which if you're on the Great Lakes, if you're running up there, that could be valuable for you. Yeah, having the dive doors on those 25, 26 footers, you start to see some functional, usable dive boards, and dive doors, not diving boards. But so yeah, that would be my take on it. And it was just when I looked at them, it was just little things that that jumped out at me. And I've got the picture somewhere. I haven't put it together in my updated video on it, but let's see if I can zoom in on that. But even like this, mounting the speaker right into the upholstery, that's sort of unusual. Some of the hardware that they used, it was cheaper as well. So anyway, I don't want to beat up. I don't like to beat up on brands because they're right for some people, and there's a reason they do it that way. Sometimes it's a cost saving thing. Sometimes it's for the application that somebody may use it for. But those are just some initial thoughts on that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that jumps out. I hate when they use the fisheye lenses and they distort all of the dimensions on things. I don't think it's an accurate representation of the actual boat. Yeah, that was one of them. Is the way they did their this is on the 23, I think is the one I spent the most time on. It was a fairly uncomfortable helm for me. I'm 6'2", and it felt crowded, that was one thing I do remember on that. So, all right. Well, hopefully that's helpful for you, Anthony. And I will come back to you if you added something. New Blarg, welcome. Have you ever owned a 9-foot beam boat you trail it around regularly? No, I have not. And depending on your state, you may need a permit or you may not. So in what states require a permit for a 9-foot beam trailer? Escorts. No, that's not what I want. It can be done. I had clients I know that did it. The what was it? The Sea Ray 290 in a couple of years was a 9-foot beam, I think. And the way they handled it was they stuck to North and South Carolina. I want to say it was okay there. And their philosophy was they were just going to ask for forgiveness and assume they weren't going to get pulled over, not do anything else dumb. But let's see if we can find this. Comes to towing, wide load permit as long as your boat does not exceed 8.5. Exception to the norm includes New York, New Jersey, Hawaii have 8-foot, North Carolina, which allows 10-foot. Okay, so that's what it was. They were in North Carolina, and you could you had a 10-foot beam there. So check your state requirements. And then the other thing you've got to know is, you're taking up a whole lot of the lane, and that trailer is sticking out wider than your truck is. And you just need to be aware of that extra wide. Now, if you get too much bigger, but that's like 12 feet. You got to register your routes. In some cases, you've got to have a chase vehicle that runs with you. But I think you're getting up into 12, 14 feet wide there on some of the real big boats that you're probably going to have professionally hauled. But let's see what South Carolina is. 12-foot. You've got to have specific routes, and you got to register every time. Yeah, I'm not going to read through that whole thing, but that's 12 feet. So check it out. And that's one I should probably put together a resource for that on just do the research for everybody. And trailer with guide. Okay, so I'll do some research and try to create something like that. I'm not sure when I'll get to it, but you can do it in your state, Nublar, and but just double check it and make sure that that you follow your guidelines. Had a crap weekend. Boat kept dying at idle after running it for a while. Chase Banks has the 06 240 Sun Deck. Check fuel pumps, or not fuel pumps, fuel filters is probably let's see here, about 3 miles from boat dock when starting to have boat die at idle. Happened 3 times, all at idle. 350 mag. Yeah, I would see if you've got a fuel water separator, and if you haven't changed that, you might want to look at doing that. On 240 Sun Deck. That did not come with the fuel water separator, but it still may have one. But it's going to look like that right there. It's looks like an oil filter, but it screws on through the fuel line. And let's see if, yeah, I don't know, but something along those lines is what it's going to look like. Fuel filters, find out where the inline fuel filters are on that. And if it's got a fuel water separator, check that. And also just, did you get a bad batch of gas? Did you get some gas with water in it that's causing some issues? And I would also ask, how did it run the rest of the time? Was it just after you warmed it up, ran it, and then came back to idle? Kind of getting the scenario in which it happened can be helpful when you talk to a technician. A technician's way smarter than me about diagnosing these kind of things. But if you can give them, I did this at this RPM for this period of time, the temperature was this, and when I pulled back on the throttle, this is what happened. It cranked right back up, or it wasn't. Give them those specifics, and that can be helpful for them to kind of zero in on the issue. But I always think of fuel when it starts dying like that. That to me says something with the fuel, and go from there. Yes, it was very fun doing it. Next year would be better now that I know what to expect. Get there about the same time. Yeah, that once you do, like, sometimes going to events like that, you kind of figure out, okay, this is how they do it. This is how they tie everybody up. I like, if I'm rafting up with a big group of people, I like to make sure that I've got the long dock lines, and I always make sure that the loop end is on my side, and that so that way if a boat needs to go in the middle and I'm going to stay, and usually for me, if I'm somewhere, I like to just stay. I don't like to move all around. If somebody needs to slip out, you unhook it from that boat, you hand the lines across to the next boat, so that when they can just pull out or back out, whatever, always pay attention to who's around you at a raft up, because people are swimming everywhere, especially when you're going in reverse. But they can slide out, and then you got the lines that you can just kind of pull yourselves back together. And that's a helpful thing to have, is dock lines that can stretch from your boat across, 10 feet plus to the next boat, so you can adjust when people are coming and going. And then I also like to be the one to have an anchor out, so that way it's something that so many people don't put an anchor out, or they don't know how to set it properly, that I know if I've got my anchor, at least my 2 or 3 boats that are connected to me are in good shape, and my boat's going to be more well protected. So yeah, those little ins and outs can be helpful, of being it, seeing how it's done, and learning from there. Don't know if it helps. 8.6 isn't bad. So I think that's in regards to 211's got the 262 C Pro Commander, 262 Commander. So this is for 268 C Fox, not C Pro. I'm sorry. So for, who was that asking about the Wellcraft? Anthony. So he has this boat on Lake Cumberland, in which is a real big lake, can get real rough in Kentucky, and he's loved it. Got it this year, and him and his wife have really enjoyed it. And so that's a boat that it probably is in that same level as the Wellcraft, real close to it. And it's got the dive door. I don't know how big a dive door you're looking for, but if that's helpful. So anyway, you can ask him some questions on that. That's what he's running if he's out there today. I won both tournaments this weekend, mostly due to Thursday night event got cut short. Crazy strong thunderstorm yesterday, got called at noon because of the wind. Only had 9 pounds for Thursday, had 25 yesterday. Nice, congratulations on another win. For those of you that don't know, Brock runs a lot of fishing tournaments in his fishing club, and he has had a lot of wins over the last couple of years that I'm aware of. A lot of wins overall, but also runs a center console in Charleston, where he is. But he trailers his or used to trailer his bass boat all up and down the East Coast everywhere, fishing. And unless he's found something since last weekend, is still on the hunt, because he sold his bass boat to somebody that made him a super good offer, and is trying to make the decision of what the next move is going to be. So congratulations on that. Keep piling that prize money away, and that will be helpful in the next one. Let's see, Anthony. Okay, good. Watch that. Robert Geyer, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the live. New to boating. Do you need to use marine gas, or is regular okay? So, Robert, I recommend the marine gas, like Valtech. That's what you're usually going to find at a marina. More expensive, but what's critical is that it's 100% gasoline. So if I'm at a pump on land, ethanol, 100% gasoline, and marine's probably a little bit better, but there's a much bigger difference between 10% ethanol and 100% gasoline. I'm going to take the 100% gasoline every time. The Rec 90 is in the Valtech on the marine side. It's got more corrosion inhibitors, I would imagine, is the biggest difference. But is it worth it? I don't know. You're probably okay if you're running that gas through. And then the next thing is to make sure you run the gas. Like, one of the bad things for gas is to have it sit. Gas can go stale. It can turn bad. If it's ethanol, it can has phase separation and suck in moisture. But even gas sitting for a year or more, if it's not treated properly, can go bad. So just use 100% gasoline if you can find it. if you're at a marina or on the water, you probably don't have a choice, and you're probably getting the Valtech or the Rec 90 or whatever. Depending on what motor you're running, most most marine engines are rated for Mercury anyway. Rated Their horsepower is rated at 87 octane. So going that higher octane isn't as important either as just going with 100% gasoline. I think are rated at 90 octane, but Mercury's are rated at 87. Yamaha, I'm going to say Yamaha's 87 as well, but I'm not as positive as I am on the Merc on that. So yeah, regular 100% gasoline versus the 10% ethanol. And I'll also say this, Robert, if you're running the fuel out, within a week, like you're running your boat a ton, and every week you're refilling. Now the ethanol 100% gasoline, it's still better, but the ethanol is really bad the longer it's sitting. So the longer it's sitting, the more moisture it's attracting, the more it can break down, the more it can gum up your fuel lines. And so I'll throw that caveat in. There's a really good video that let's see, again, boating ethanol. All right, so Aaron at Born Again Boating put this video together back in 2021. What fuel do you put in your boat? And he did an awesome little experiment with it where he actually put ethanol 100%, and I think he did a treated one, and he shows what happens over time, like why ethanol is bad. It's really interesting, and I just started doing. Um, So he invited me to be the guest host with him. Let's see here. Yeah, so he reached out a couple of weeks ago and asked me to be the guest host with him on his podcast. And I'm super impressed with this channel. I've been a fan of his for a long, long time. So it's pretty cool to have him reach out and do that. So if you listen to podcasts, the Boaters podcast, you can get it on all of the podcast platforms. It's got its own YouTube channel. And we've done 2 episodes now, and we'll record a third one this week. Probably a third and fourth one this week. But he's a technician. He's super knowledgeable. He's also a saltwater guy. Me being a freshwater guy that is more on the boat side and the newer. He's on the tech side in saltwater and has experience with a ton of different situations. And his mechanics brain is it's really cool to have conversations, because I ask the questions that I want to know, and then I get from you guys, and then we answer questions from his channel, and it's good back and forth, and he's a super nice guy. So check that out if you are interested in podcasts as well. But check out, that's why I brought that up. Check out that video on ethanol on his channel. Born Again Boating is his channel, and where'd it go? Oh, here, it's this one right here. Born Again Boating. What fuel do you put in your boat? That's the one that you'll want to check out. I like the dive door on the 262. Robalo was a thing up there. Yeah, Robalo is they're owned by uh Chaparral, right? Chaparral and Yeah, Chaparral and Ravallo. I don't know why I was, like I said, I drank a lot last night, and my brain is a little bit off. So I'm like, I should that I know, but I was questioning myself. So anyway, yeah, they probably got a pretty good sized dealer network up of the as center consoles become more common in the freshwater markets. Starting to see them on Lake of the Ozarks, Jason on Lake Cumberland. I know some regulators that are up in the Great Lakes, that people I know up there, and that 10 years ago that wasn't a thing. So yeah, you're definitely right. You'll see them more. All right, Dave Powell, welcome. Another new name here. This is awesome. We're getting some new folks in. I like that. Fairly new to the channel, but loving it. Thank you. Slowly working my way through all your videos that pertain to me. Good. Midwest freshwater trailering, a bow rider. Many years on an old Sea Ray. Now own a CS23. CS23, is that a Cobalt? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, that is a very nice boat. Welcome to the channel. Glad that you're finding some value, and the you can't go wrong with the Cobalt in freshwater, especially. That that's a just it's a beautiful boat. It's a good looking boat, and my in-laws run a R5 on Lake Loudon in Tennessee. So I grew up, Dave. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but I grew up in Nebraska, and we ran crown lid, couple crown lines. We ran on Lake of the Ozarks, and then just some small lakes in Nebraska, Branched Oak Lake and Fremont Lakes, which are just teeny tiny lakes back home. So welcome to the channel. Great to have you, Anthony Fava. Welcome. Another new name says, hi, I'm in the market for a 22-foot dual console family boat, saltwater, don't fish, but do water sports with my kids. Didn't see a video. I haven't done a specific one. You've made the right call. The video that I did do on that dual console versus center console. So I've got this bow rider versus dual console. Which one's best for you? You're on the right track with the dual console. You can default what I say about the brands in the center console video. They're going to be very applicable to the dual consoles. So if you're looking like the Boston Whaler Vantage Premium, the Key West, I don't know what they call their dual console. They're probably a 23 DC or something like that, 232 DC, is in that mid tier. And then let's see, Trophy doesn't make a dual console, I don't believe. Mako doesn't do a dual. God, maybe does Mako? I don't think they do. Center console. Yeah, they don't. I didn't think they did. But most of the center console brands, Anthony, will do a dual console as well, and they're going to be same build quality. They're using the same lamination schedule. They're using most of the same hardware except for the windshields. That's different. They're using the same electronics. They're using basically the same upholstery, same level of quality, just running down a different line. Probably, maybe even than some of them with the same people building. They'll run dual consoles one run, and then they'll run center consoles the next run. So, yeah, that's going to be the best. But it sounds like you are 100% on the right track for style of boat for the application and what you're looking to do. And there are that's a really great fit for what you said you wanted to do. You're welcome, Anthony. Awesome. Leonard Supchek, welcome. Another new name. This is awesome. I love getting all these new names and new questions here. Hey, I had a mid-80s Robalo 22 two-stroke 200 Evinrude Cuddy. Is that a good enough boat to refurbish and have something worth having? Um, it could be. Here's the thing: is a boat that runs and it has no rot and is solid in the it's not there's no delamination, there's no rot in the transom, there's no rot in the stringer system, and it has a good motor on it. Absolutely. Well, you'll find, and we actually I talked about the podcast with Aaron, the boaters podcast that we're doing. I think it was on this last episode that may be dropping this week. We talked about some hulls that they're very coveted in that 80s to 90s range. Mako hulls specifically, very different than the Makos today that Bass Pro Shop selling. And this is the conversation we had. And it's very desirable. It rides great. It's rock solid. You can beef up that transom, hang a new outboard on it or a newer outboard on it, and you got a boat that's very, very desirable. If you have the skill set to do it, if you have the inclination to do it, yeah, you can have a boat that is in today's market, new, a 22 Robalo is 100,000, I bet. Let's see. Robalo 22. But I think Robalo does their pricing online. Come on. Nope, they stopped putting it online. Interesting. So let's look at a 2020 Robalo 22 Cayman. So that's a $70,000 boat, couple years old. And I'm assuming that 22 is probably a deeper V. They weren't really doing these hybrids back then. But so you figure 70, 80,000, depending on how it's equipped in today's market. If you can now it's an 80, the hull is an 80, so it's got to be solid. The 2-stroke Evinrude, hey, if it's running good, great, keep it on there. If it's not, you got to figure the repower in and then figure out, okay, how much money and time and effort, if you want to value your time and effort, how much is this going to cost me to get it up to par where it's going to be a usable boat for the next, if you redo the transom, the stringers are solid, you take good care of it, and it's got a good running engine, that boat's going to have value, and for another 20 years you can run it. And then you've got to decide, okay, how much is it going to cost to get it there? How much will I have in it? And what would that boat be worth if I were to sell it? Or I don't care what it would be worth to sell it, because I'm gonna run it for the next 20 years and be totally happy with it. I can upgrade the electronics with that 2020 Robalo. In 5 years, those electronics are going to be not obsolete, but very much outdated, right? So you hang a different engine on, or if that one's running good, you put on a couple of new 7-inch screens, and you got a boat that you truly can run for 20 years and have a ball in. And you can do it with sweat equity, essentially, and it could be worth it. So it just depends. It depends on, is that a boat you want to keep? Is what's it going to take to refurbish it? What does that mean on that particular boat? And then I just see that it's a cuddy as well. Is that cabin, is everything sealed up and there's no leaks, no water back in there, some of those nooks and crannies that may have got there over time. So it's sort of a judgment call, but those are the factors that I would look at: cost and value of the boat after you're done, and then how long are you doing? Is there some emotional connection to the boat? This boat's been in the family since 1980, and there's memories that are associated with it, and that has value to some people. All of those factors is what I would take into consideration. All right, Matt, welcome, Matt. Good to have you. What's going on, guys? Had 2 vacations in July. Ready to come back now. Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your vacations. I would say that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. All states over 9 feet need a permit. Okay, that I thought there was some that didn't. Like I said, North Carolina's 10 feet. So it is. Excuse me, real quick. I'm gonna blow my nose off camera. Sorry about that. Um, the I think there are some exceptions. I think there are some states that it's more than that. But yeah, 9 feet that's common to need some sort of permitting or some sort of approval to tow anything over 9. So Michael, welcome. Good. This He has been with us before. Excellent question, Anthony. I have a Yamaha jet boat. Have been entertaining going to an outboard. Um, um, Michael, you got that jet boat. That's interesting because you got that jet boat maybe a couple years ago, if I remember right. I'm curious if it's just a personal preference, like, hey, I had my fun on the jet boat, we ripped around, we had a great time, but now I want to do a different style of boating, or if there's something about your jet boat experience that has said, you know what, maybe this outboard's going to be better for me. So it's I'm doing it because my boating style is changing and that's what I need, or I'm doing it because I just think it would be better for the style of boating I have. Because if I remember right, Michael, I want to say you were even on the podcast. If I've got the right name here, let me know. That I'm just interested, curious, if you don't mind sharing that. Except if you, there you go, you beat me to it. You had that comment in there before I started rambling. So, new follower, love the channel. Thank you, Todd. I really appreciate it. Welcome. Good to have you. All right. I told my wife it was going to be a short one because I wasn't feeling well, but now I'm rejuvenated, a little sugar in me, and getting back at it. Awesome, Todd. I appreciate the nice words, and love to have you here. Chase Banks, it does have one and has hanged when I bought it. Impeller and oil change, bought March 11th of this year. Um, okay, so it's a new fuel water separator. Um, I would What would I do? I mean, and there's still the chance that you got a batch of bad gas. Like, what can happen is sometimes if you go to a marina or a gas station that doesn't turn their fuel over frequently, or whatever, something weird happened, they got water in their tank and now it gets in your tank. That can be problematic, and that can fill up your fuel water separator, in a tank of gas, where you're like, I just put it in, I should get a season out of this, or at least 50 hours easy. Um, they're 20 to 50 bucks, so they're fairly inexpensive. That may be worth checking. And then also the inline, there's another fuel filter in there somewhere. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you where to look, but if you go online, I'm sure you can find that pretty easily. That would probably be the next thing I would check, if maybe the fuel filter for the boat hasn't been changed, since it was new, or recently. That could be a thing to check if you're. And I think, Chase Banks, I think from the comments that you put on here, that you're probably mechanically inclined enough to trace that fuel line, find it, and for a inline fuel filter is going to be reasonably inexpensive. Get a OEM Merc one, and don't do anything cheap on Amazon. That's not a part to go cheap on. Just get a good OEM one, Quicksilver or Merc, and see if that's it. Um, could be helpful. Nice boat, CS23. Yeah, very very solid boat, 100%. Um, yeah, Matt. I hope your vacation was on the water. Hope you took that chaparral out. Chase Banks, you're welcome. Glad to help. Todd, have 100K, want to spend on a boat, looking for one large seat capacity, 15. Two, want quality but not luxury. Okay, so I kind of put that in reliable, like, hey, stuff's not going to break But I also don't need the LED cup holders and the misters and the whatever. Want to move up to a surf boat. We're thinking of uh, the Montera. Okay, so that tri-tune. Um, I have talked to, matter of fact, I just haven't been able to squeeze it in, but I have talked to the owner of Montera. Um, his card's up here somewhere on my desk, but and he has offered me a tour of their factory and an opportunity to run one of their boats. Todd, my in-laws have a place on Lake Loudon in Tennessee, and we were out running on. I mentioned they have an R5 Cobalt. My daughters and I were out wakeboarding. They wanted to get up early and go wakeboarding, so we went out and we saw them running their 21 foot model, which was brand new. And what they do, they send the engineers out, they build their first model, and they send the engineers out and some other people. There's 6 guys in the boat, and they send them out there to break it. They send them out there to see what did we get off that we can break now. We can redesign it and fix it before we start sending these out to customers. So they were out there doing that shakedown run on the first haul of the 21 size. And that led me to stop and talking to them. It's a unique looking boat. You see a pontoon, but it just doesn't look right. You're like, that's a pontoon, but it doesn't look right. So I whipped up to them, I chatted them up, and had a conversation that led them to connecting me with the CEO, and then meeting him, talking to him at a boat show, talking to him on the phone a couple times. So that's one way to go. If you're looking new to get that 100,000 mark, you're going to be looking probably like a Heyday, maybe a Supreme, and those are going to fit the bill of reliable. The Supremes owned by Correct Craft, owned by Nautique. Heydays owned by Brunswick Company, same company that builds, Sea Ray, Whaler, all those, Bayliner. They've got it, Lund, Crestliner. They got a whole bunch of different brands, and the Heyday is, hey, it's no frills. It doesn't have all the extra stuff, but it's a good, reliable. They're running a Mercruiser engine in there, which is, and there's a certain point where not having all that extra stuff almost leads to that Toyota effect of it being more reliable because there's less crap to break, right? When you've got a $250,000 Nautique, that doesn't even get you to the Paragon anymore. The 25 Paragon, I think, is like 400 grand now, and you've got screens, and you've got surf systems and tabs. All that stuff is prone to break. What they did with the Heyday is they designed the hull to put out the wake with the ballast, and that gives you a good surfable wake. Not the best wake by any means, but a good surfable wake without any surf system. You can add stuff to it if you want, but that's going to get you in that 100 grand range. And then you also can go a couple years old and get into that price range, within a 5-year window. So let's say 2018, 2019 to 2022, and that opens up some of those mid tier. We'll say maybe like a Taiga, Supreme, I think, is another very good option that would get you close to the 100, and you could probably be a pretty new boat there. The 15 capacity is probably going to put you at a 25 footer, which I don't know if Supreme does a 25. I think their biggest might be let me check. Supreme wake boat. Oh, okay. There's ES. Seating capacity 17. So yeah, you're maybe even, that's interesting. That's higher than I thought it was going to be. Let's see what the 23 is. The 23 maybe, all right, 23 is 14. So yeah, I think that 25 is probably the mark. And then there's also, Todd, think in your mind, there's the legal capacity limit, number of seats, and weight capacity, because it's whatever comes first, right? If you got a bunch of big chubby guys like me, 200 plus pounds, that's 2,800 pounds. And I'm guessing that the capacity rating for that, if it's not yacht certified, is like 2,400 pounds or 2,000 pounds. So you've got the weight capacity, and then you've got places for butts, is what I call it. Like, is there going to be a place for everybody to squeeze in on that boat? And that you can just kind of count out: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So yeah, you can get 14 people on that, assuming everybody wants to be pretty cozy on that boat. That's kind of how I look at it. Is, all right, do I have the capacity to be legal, and then do I got the places for butts? And then that Montera, it definitely gives you, for those of you that haven't seen this boat, surf boat, and they've been building these now for 4 years, and I've inspected them. They look to be pretty well built. I've not surfed it. I've not even really seen the surf wave to see how it compares. But it does give you surf boss. Let's check out the 25. 16. So that's interesting. That may be something, Todd, that their 25 foot is rated for 16 people. The Supreme's 25 foot's rated for 17. This is the 23 foot. So that may be something that's interesting, but places for butts may be a little bit different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, so there's probably places for 16 people there. Um, a little bit tight, but yeah, that could be a good option for you as well. So I wish I wish I had done that tour. I just haven't had a chance to squeeze it in, because when we go to Tennessee, it's vacation time for us, and my wife tries to encourage me not to work too much while we're there. Although I'm always shooting videos or doing something. 211. This is for whoever is asking about the center consoles. You'll love Seafox as long as the dealer is a good one. Stand behind their sales warranty. Yeah, 100%, Jason. That goes for any. I don't care what brand you buy. You buy a Nautique, you buy a Mastercraft, you buy a Whaler or a Grady, you buy a Cobalt. You buy any of those brands. Sport, it doesn't matter, that dealer, because something's going to not be right on the boat. It's the nature of handmade products that don't have the automation, don't have the scale, don't have the number of units being pumped out. Something's going to be off, and that dealer needs to step up and fix it in a quick time, or at least address it. This is how we're going to deal with it. That's acceptable for you. And that dealer, 100% accurate. So I shot a video, or no, what did I do? Oh, I was writing an article today. I went and was writing an article for the website, and that was one of the things that the dealer is critical when you're searching. So on new, so on the used, it's not as critical, but on new, it's 100%. Still haven't found what I want yet, barring my dad's nitro for the rest of the season. Yeah, I mean, Brock, as well as anybody that this fall, this winter, there's going to be some opportunities, I think, to get something that's going to fit. Hey, this is my bass boat budget, and the electronics and the trolling motors, all the stuff that come with it, and I'm going to take whatever approach you decide on I'm going to get the boat that I want, add the electronics over time as I win tournaments, or I'm gonna scale back the boat and get it right out of the gate exactly what I want with electronics. And there's no right answer there, no wrong answer either. So um, been looking for semi-used Triton TR series because they go fast. That's right. Bass Boat Heritage of yesteryear. That's good. Let's see. Todd says Malibu versus Montera, the ATX option. Yeah, it's. I am not. I'm not a surfer. Like I've done it before. I've done it behind. I worked with a nautique dealership and took my daughter. They took my daughters and I surfing one day, and got to surf behind a G, which was awesome. But I'd never surfed before. It was my first time trying it, and so I've got a buddy that's got a Malibu that he loves. And matter of fact, he just upgraded to a bigger Malibu. His I don't remember what year it was. I think it was the 25. He went from the 23 to the 25. I don't know what year. Um, it's I don't know. I can't give you a answer based on anything but just flat out opinion. And because I haven't surfed those models, I haven't even run the Montera the ATX. So just if you go use, make sure you inspect it well, and make sure you check out and see if you can surf it. That is going to be everybody's got their own preference on wave. See if you can get out there and surf it before you buy it. On a used boat, they're going to be a little skeptical of taking you surfing at times because they're like, I don't want to just let this guy surf my boat so he can surf and he's not serious about buying it. So maybe work something out, give you a $250 deposit. If I don't buy it, you keep half of it or whatever. That sometimes that can come up. Sometimes they're perfectly happy to do it, but definitely an option to consider. 83 Bayliner is getting some work done to it. Nice. Anthony, you're very welcome. I appreciate the love for the channel. That is always nice to hear. Dave says, thanks, Captain Matt. Working out beautifully so far. That's good. Can you comment on swim platforms and ease of egress? Game changer handicap for old folks. So I assume that you're talking. I think that the swim step, step vault. See if we can just do an image of this so I don't have to play a video. All right, so this is the swim step that he's talking about. I think that Brunswick tried to snake their patent, tried to go around their patent, and they got caught, and they weren't different enough, so they actually got. So that's what this picture is. It is so. This is good in some respects. My wife, she loves it because she can just scoot her butt up and then sit on it backwards and push herself up to the next level, and it works great for her. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, who's 70 some years old, has a shoulder issue. She's really struggling and hasn't been going on the boat much this year because it's difficult for her to get up. This step from the swim platform up is a pretty big one. Even for me, I've got bad knees, so it's not great. But I've got to kind of get my momentum going and try to pull myself up there. Couple of things that you can do. One is if you're having some issue getting on the swim step, is use like a big floating noodle or something like that to kind of support your butt, and that will help you get on that swim step a little bit easier. And then you can tie a line. If you've got your ski pylon in, you can tie it there, but just something to give you that little bit extra leverage up and into the boat. If you've got a tower, you can do it off there. The cleats are a little bit off the side to get you the right angle. But those are some of the options that we've used a couple of them, the floating noodles, but I've heard from other people as I was researching that those tying a line off can be helpful. Maybe even if you've got a like a tube rope, something that's big and heavy, that and if you even have another section that you can put some knots in it or even a handle on it to pull up, that can be helpful as well. But the swim platform is something that, I mean, it's awesome. It's something that we sit on when we're anchored out. We're freshwater lake on when we're running that boat, and my kids are jumping in off it. We're, if it's real hot out, you don't want to get all the way in the water. You just sit on that, and you're partially submerged. It's a pretty nice option, but it is a big step up. That's the one thing that I've noticed is a little bit of a challenge at times. So hopefully, Dave, that's what you were looking for there. Bennett Burke, welcome, a new name. Hi, Matt. Could you go through the process and maybe some options of getting your captain's license? Sure. So what I did is I went to C school. So C School is one of the many providers of U.S. Coast Guard approved training. To qualify, you have to have so many hours of study time or class time before you can sit for the captain's test. So that you can do it online. Everything's timed, and some are better than others. I tried to do it online. I've been boating since I was 5 years old, and there's stuff that I didn't know anything about, because you're like day shapes for a minesweeper is always the one that I'm like, I didn't experience minesweepers when I was boating in Nebraska. But so there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of memorization, a lot of just a bunch of knowledge that you just have to have. So the online, it didn't work for my personality. I've got a ton of things going on, and I didn't have the discipline to sit down and study for the course. So what I did is I converted from the online program to an in-class. I can sit and if I'm in class and somebody's talking, I can absorb the information. I'm really good at retaining information that's spoken to me or watching from a video. It's how I learn best. I did it. Then you do that process at C School, and I assume it's the same with most of them like this. To qualify to get your six pack, your OUPV, you need a CPR class, a first aid class, you need a vision test, you need a health physical, a specific physical for and form filled out, a urine test, a drug test. And so what they did in the in-person was 2 weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like 8-hour days. And it's like, you've got to be in class for the full 8 hours. The captain that did it, Captain Spivey, said the Coast Guard will send in dummy students just to spot check classes for people to make sure that they're fulfilling the hourly time that your butt is in that seat. And if you're not, you can lose your ability to teach those classes. So there's no messing around. You're in that seat for 8 hours a day, going through all the material. But what they did, partly to fill the time of having the butts in the seats, they brought in a doc that would do the physical and the eye test for you. They brought in the specimen cups and did the procedure of doing your drug testing, and they set all that off for you. So we had 30 dudes and a couple women that were, peeing in cups in the bathroom and had a tote full of urine samples to then take to the lab. And there was a chain of custody and all that. And it was pretty interesting. We did the CPR class and the first aid class. All of that was kind of put together. Once you have all of that, now you have earned the right to sit for the test. 2 50-question tests and 1 10-question test. 50 questions on deck general and navigation general. Deck general is like lines and hardware and terminology. Navigation is buoy markers and terminology and actually running boats. And then 10 questions on chart plotting, actually charting out navigation and different things to do with that. Two of them, let's see, deck general, nav general, I think you could get a 75 out of 75%. On the plotting, I think you had to get a 90 on that. And that might be off, but so you got to know your stuff. These tests are hard and they're long and there's a lot of information. But then you also, to actually qualify, then you have to have experience operating boats. So you have to document the running of a boat for a minimum of 4-hour period of time, from age 18 to whatever you are. So anything before 18, no, maybe it's 16. One of those. Before that doesn't count. But after that, you can total it up. You can go as far back as you need to. But to get your OUPV, your 6-pack, then you need like 180 days of sea time, 4-hour days. A minimum of 4-hour days. Even if you're on the water for 8 hours, that counts as 1 day. But a minimum, and operator, like at the wheel or on watch. So if you're a passenger in a boat for 8 hours, that would qualify for that. If you, like, I upgraded to my masters. I'm a 25-ton master, and also did my towing certification just because I was doing it. It was an extra 10-question test, 20-question test, and an extra $200 or whatever it was. I'm like, all right, I'll do that. And then another, that was online that I did that one. So you document that on the Coast Guard forms, fill that out, send it off. For me, it was like 3-4 months later, I got the approval. You go and you have to get a background check, and through Homeland Security, because this right here is issued by Homeland Security. So I was trying to see if it had, I don't see where it says it on here, but it's the Merchant Marine credentials. And so you have to have a background check and pass all of that, which is criminal, like DUI, you're out. Certain crimes, you're out. Other things, if it's explainable, you may or may not be able to do it. But that's sort of what the process looks like. So hopefully, Bennett, that's what you're looking for, and that's helpful. I did, if you're really interested, I did an interview with the president of C School, Ken, and you can go find that on the channel. It was in a Boater Expo series I did a couple years ago, and so you can check that out if you want to get a little bit more information. But that's kind of a high level. Doing all the glass work, building a center console for it right now. Nice. Very nice. Let's see. CWKIE 377. Welcome. Another new name. This is awesome. I love all these new folks joining us. Just bought a 2017 Godfrey Pontoon, 2086 True Triple Tube package. Sticker says Max 115. Because the engine mount, the engine pod that hangs on, isn't strong enough for a 150. Too heavy, and it's going to put too much torque for the specs of that for it to operate safely, and to for a long period of time. So essentially what it boils down to is the gauge of the aluminum, the thickness of the aluminum isn't heavy enough gauge to support the weight and the torque of a 150. That the power, when you're sitting still and you put the hammer down on a 115, okay, that's got some torque to it. But you put the hammer down on a 150, and it's going to really put some extra pressure on that engine pod. Also, a 150 on a 20-foot. I would, me personally, I would want to be at a 22-footer before I put a 150 on it. You're going to get better performance out of it with the extra length of the boat, but it's that 150 max horsepower is strictly because of the strength of that engine pod that the motor hangs on. DJ Smokey, welcome. I believe Trump could be a biblical figure also. Planets might be conscious. All right. Let's see. DJ, this is a boating channel, so I'm going to put you in timeout right now because I'm not going to mess with that. Rob, see, you got more followers after a night of partying. Yeah, I told my wife, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think I had that much to drink last night. And she said, yeah, you did. You go out, and it just, I don't do that often. I've got kids, and I'm almost 50, and I go out and have a couple of drinks now and again, but I don't drink like I did back in the day, and it caught up with me. So I'm glad I'm not slurring and stuttering and all messed tonight with all these new folks on for the first time. Michael, it was in reference to the dual console. So me wanting to go to an outboard is for the quietness. Neighbors just got a center console with the Yamaha Whisper Quiet. Yeah, okay. I was like, that name is ringing a bell here. Yeah, the quietness of the outboards compared to a jet boat is night and day. And yeah, you are 100% correct about that. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. Chase, we did have some wicked storms here recently. Yeah, it's there's a number of ways for water to get in, and because the fuel system, this is about, he had his engine was dying, running, come back to idle, and it was dying, which jumps out to me as could be a fuel issue. That'd be one of the first things. And the fuel system on a boat is open so that the fuel can expand and contract, and it's the way it needs to be on a boat. And so that openness of it allows for moisture to get into the fuel, even just the condensation, because it's open to the elements. If it's a damp environment after some storms, maybe the wind kind of was whipping and was blowing it up in there. It's that little silver thing that's probably sticking off the back is what the vent looks like, and or not off the back, but probably on the gunnel somewhere. And yeah, that certainly can happen. Reliable. Okay, good. So that was in regards to the wake boat. Yeah, you're very welcome, Todd. You're very welcome. Thought it might be an IAC valve start due to only idle. Yes, always start inexpensive, and yeah, you might want to, if you go watch some of the other YouTube videos of guys that are more tech savvy than me. Type in fuel issues on Merc 350 mag, Merc 5.7 liter, and you might get something that's like, oh, that's really close to what I'm experiencing. And it could just be a guy that's doing his own wrenching on his boat that's sharing some videos, and let their diagnosis help you as well. And yeah, hopefully a $20-$50 fuel filter over getting into some serious stuff or a better situation. Yeah, Moomba's another one. Thank you, Matt, for adding that. A little over 100K MSRP. Dealers selling them, but may get close to that. Absolutely. Yeah, the Mackay or the Craze, they're I don't know which one is going to get you the 15 capacity, but that's absolutely another one to look at. 1 hour in, no signs of the kids. Just as I read that, Kings of the City, I hear my oldest one outside the door talking to the dog. So we'll see if they pop in here. Dave Powell, they had while my wife and I were out with neighbors, the neighbors' kids were over. We shared a babysitter who is on the high school dance team and in the dance company that our daughters go to and their daughter goes to. And so they couldn't wait to kick us out of the house. They were doing running the air track and doing flips on the mat, going to the park, going to get ice cream. But had a big old time while my wife and I were out having a good time. I've hauled and delivered fuel for 15 years. Bad fuel is real and more prevalent thing than most people realize. That's interesting that you say that, and it is. It's especially in boating. It's a common thing to have issues with because of all the water. Mark Sanderson, thanks for the help. Forming a love affair with the Great White Freedom dual console. Did Cobalt Sea Ray ever make a dual console? Not in the recent past. Cobalt, no, but Sea Ray made what is it? The Sea Ray Laguna is that the right name I'm thinking of? Sea Ray console Laguna. That was back in the that was back in the 90s. Let's see here. No, that looks like a walker. Oh, yeah, that does look like a dual console. I guess they don't want to show the bow of it. No, that's a walk around. What was that? Maybe that's the one I was thinking of. Sea Ray dual console boat. No, I guess I was off on that. It was the Laguna. They made the center console, but not a true saltwater dual console. I make that distinction. I don't know if that's an official industry distinction. The dual console is saltwater. The bow rider, which is technically a dual console, but it doesn't have the flare. It's why I created the video on the difference between the two. But once Brunswick bought Sea Ray back a long time ago, I think they probably left the dual consoles to Whaler and let them build those out. Cobalt, I know didn't. I can't think of any. The way I categorize dual consoles, Cobalt didn't make one. Outboard with flare, with scuppers, a better draining system for saltwater. And if you look, yeah, so like when you look at these, they're both dual console. They've got windshield and two helm seats, open bow, but the flare up in the bow to splash those waves up and out. Versus if you were to run this, I think that's a chaparral. If you were to run the chaparral against that Key West going through a rough inlet, this chaparral is going to get water in the bow before this Key West because it's lower. It doesn't have as much flare. It's more straight up and down. It also is, you can see this, it up in the bow, it raises up a couple inches to give you even more depth up in the front as you're going through the big swells. And it's also doesn't have carpet in it. It's got better, you can't see it on here, but like scuppers that just water hits the deck. And instead of run down into the bilge and being kicked out by the bilge pump like you would on a bow rider, it runs down and it has a bilge pump also, but it's also going to kick it overboard via the scuppers, which are at the low level on the deck, so that water can just flow right out. They're almost always going to have outboards, although bow riders are starting to have more and more outboards. Those are some of the bigger differences in my definition of it. Bo, how you doing? Saint, good to have you. I believe new boats are all closed internal vent with the filler tube. Uh, 2023 systems. Let's see. Modern gas fuel systems on boats. Yeah, they're vented. Yeah, they're vented to the open. They're vented to the environment. Now there may be some check valves and things like that in there, but they're they've got that open area to the um, to the environment. So I know mine has it to 2023. I'll have to look into that a little bit more because the way I've always understood it, I don't remember that change happening. ABYC specifies permanent tanks must be grounded, vented to the outside, and accessible for inspection and testing. All components must meet standard. So ABYC is sort of the um, they set the standards. The American Boat and Yacht Council, they set the building standards for this is the way boats should be built. And if you build them to this minimum standard, and they're always improving it, they're always more safety, more security, better flotation, all of that stuff. So I'll dig into that a little bit more. But that's interesting. I'll have to um, closed internal vent in the filler tube. Yeah, let me dig into that more. Thank you for sharing that, Jason. I'll look into your CFOX and see how they're doing that. Finally got my dad to try out one of those lily pads. He had a fun day. Those are awesome. Those are a lot of fun for just relaxing. Or if you're my daughters, they have the kind of king of the mountain, king of the what do we call it? King of the hill, where who can knock the other one off fastest with different rules, and I've got to be the judge of who's breaking the rules, which is always a fun time. I like the dual console because of the freeboard seaworthiness. Absolutely, 100%, Mark, 100%. Anthony, as far as used dual consoles, how old is too old? Don't want to have any worry about it too much. 2013. It depends on how well the engine's been maintained. I'm assuming I don't know this. I don't think you said, but in a saltwater environment, the the less time in the saltwater environment, the better. So it absolutely an 18 or 19 is going to be a better option if it's well cared for. A 2013, 2014, if they've kept up with the maintenance, and I'm talking more than just oil changes, gear lube changes, and impeller. I'm talking about flushing the engines. I'm talking about rinsing the salt water off, pulling the cowling, because that cowling is allowing air to be sucked in. Well, when you're ripping down, a 10-mile run offshore, that all that seawater is spraying and it's getting sucked up into the cowling, and so you've got to put some corrosion inhibitors on those connectors, on the linkages, all of that. You've got to clean that every now and again. So if all of that's been done and the engine's been well taken care of, you're probably okay with the 2000, 2013, 2014. Just know that you've got to be really meticulous about keeping up with it. Okay. 2018, 2019, again, all that stuff still needs to be done, but it hasn't been exposed to those elements, that harsh corrosiveness of the salt water and the salt air. The boat, even though you pull it out, if it's kept at a dry stack marina or if it's kept near the ocean, that air still has that salt in it. And that's almost, I'd want it to be used more in that environment where everything's getting lubricated, everything's getting washed down with fresh water consistently. But I'm just going to be a little bit more diligent in my inspection the older the boat is. And I'm really, Anthony, depending on how mechanically inclined you are, if you can go through that engine and kind of check some things, ask the right questions, if it's a 2013 Yamaha, look at the manual and say, all right, what does it say to do every 5 years or every 100 hours or every 300 hours, 500 hours, and then get verification that they did those checks, they did those jobs, because otherwise you're going to have to pay for that, and it's because it needs to get done if you're in a saltwater environment. And if you don't, this is where I was going. If you don't have those skills, like I don't have, I know enough that I can look at it for the initial run, but before I would spend money, I would call one of my technician friends, say, hey, I'm going to pay you your hourly rate. I want you to come check this out. Tell me if it's good. Anything that you see that hasn't been done properly or done at all, ask the questions of the owner that I may not know to ask about. Hey, did this specific job get done? Because it needs to be done at 500 hours. It didn't. Okay, well, Matt, that's a $750 job that I'm going to recommend you do right out of the gate. Well, that price just came down $750, right? That's kind of what I'm talking about in the inspection phase. BC Outdoors, what's your thought on a 150 Mariner outboard? I'm looking at buying another boat. It all depends on that 150 Mariner. That boat or that engine is, I don't even know when Mariner stopped building. When did Mariner building motors? 99. So 99, they ended the Mariner brand. So that motor's at least 20 years old. That's fine. Just make sure that motor's got good compression. That motor, the lower unit's in good shape. That the prop shaft is straight. Nothing's been bent. That the prop's in good condition. That the oil is clean and there's no issues there. Absolutely 100% get that boat on the water and run that puppy. Make sure, and it's probably a 2-stroke actually, but make sure all of that stuff checks out, because at this point it's about that motor. Even the worst engines out there, I'll have people let's say the Evinrude Ficht, like you can't find anybody in the marine industry that has a large experience with stories about engines and experiences. You won't find anybody that's like, that's a great engine. But what you can find is you can find a bunch of people that own those that didn't have a lick of problem with it. The failure rate was like 10-15%. Well, that's way too high, right? That's like, stay away, because that's too high. You don't want to be in that group. But 80% of them still had a good experience, right? So if it's still running 23 years later, well, that's a good one. It's just a matter of, is it good enough for you to put your hard-earned money to buy it? Bass boats have had a passenger console that are marketed as dual consoles. Nitro model back in the 2000s that always center dual console. It had a bench seat that sat 4 across. All right, let's see here what this looks like. I think I can picture what you're talking about. Center boat. Okay, so you've got, if this is the, and then we have our first appearance.
Because we've all been hiding.
You've been hiding?
Yeah.
Who are you hiding from?
Well,
Did you make a new one for me, or is this the one that you made for me last time?
No, that's the same one.
Same one? Okay.
Yeah.
She's been making a bunch more bracelets.
What's today?
Today's Sunday, because I'm doing my Sunday live.
Yeah, but what day?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, you can see right here. She also has me cutting out my soda. Yeah.
What is today?
Today's Sunday.
Okay, but what day is that?
Sunday the 6th, baby. So she made me a little chart to help me stop drinking soda because I drink way too many of these. And
what other day did you say you had one?
I had one on the 4th. Yeah, I had a refill on that day too. So I can only have 2 more this month, and it's only the 7th. I'm not pacing myself very well, am I?
No, 3 more.
3 more? Okay.
No, 2 more. 2 more.
Yeah, 2 more. All right. I love you. Say hi. If you're gonna say hi. See it. So stop making shadows on my backlight. Let's see you, baby. All right, so let's go back to this. I don't even know what we're talking about now. Yeah, the bench, the seats across, and having that dual console on a bass boat. That's interesting. Mark Sanderson says, "Do you have a top 5 quality dual console builders, Grady? Like to find something used." So I would say, just kind of off the top of my head, you go Grady, you go Whaler, you go Everglades dual console. Do they build a dual console? Yeah. Everglades would be in that category. What size are you thinking, Mark? Did we talk about that dual console because of the freeboard? Okay, so 20 foot. Let's see. Yeah, they don't have a smaller dual console. That's what I was thinking. Pursuit doesn't have anything that small. Let me go to my list here. I'm trying to have a little bit. Um, Regulator, Robalo, Scout. Their Dorado. They got a 21 Dorado, I know. Or they had a 21 Dorado. Okay, 17, 19, 21. So the Scout Dorado, Sportsman console. I have Sportsman in the mid tier level, but you know, there's several guys on these, including Brock, that have a Sportsman, and Heritage Open. Do they not have a dual console? Well, the Open, no. The Heritage, no. Yeah, these are all center consoles. Masters they're all center consoles. Okay, so Sportsman is out. Blackfin's not. Black Tip, Whaler, Creval, no. Edgewater, Grady. Yeah, so I would say Grady. Key West does one that size. They're another mid tier, but when it comes to being reliable, they're all going to have a Merc or a Yamaha on them. You know, some of them will have Suzuki depending on the dealer. So they're good, solid boats. They're just not as solid as the Whaler, the Grady, the Everglades, the Pursuit, the Regulator. Sea Pro probably does. Mid tier on the C Pro. And sorry, I'm sort of thinking as I'm looking here. They C Pro's only got a 24 if that's bigger than what you want. So, and I also 13 to 15 years old. I don't know what they were building back then. So that's, that was a 09, right? Somewhere in that early or late 2000s, mid 2000s. Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know what I would say. There were probably more people building dual consoles back there at smaller sizes because at that point we didn't have the 450 Racing and the 600 Merc and those engines. So I think you'll find more of those dual consoles in the smaller sizes in those years. And just like I tell everybody, Mark, I've mentioned it a few times on this call, is it's about the specific boat that you're looking at. So if you give me a Grady and you give me a Trophy, is probably too big of a gap, but a Grady and we'll say Key West. All right, so Grady is here, Key West is in the middle, right? There's boats lower, but it's in the middle. I would take a really well taken care of Key West over a Grady that wasn't taken care of. So I would take better condition over better build quality any day of the week. Now, it's got to meet your personal standards, but condition trumps brand every time when you're looking at a boat that's, I even say 5 to 7 years old, because here's the thing. If it was cheaply built, after 10 years, it's going to show that it was cheaply built. And so it goes into the condition, right? If the hatches were cheap, if the gel coat was cheap and it's chalky and it doesn't come back as quickly, if they use cheaper stainless steel, it's going to show the rust. So you can see those things. And so condition trumps brand after 5 to 7 years, in my opinion. And you'll be able to spot those pretty quick as you go looking at them. And even when you start zooming in on pictures and looking at the specifics, you'll be able to tell those things. Virgo Man, welcome. Does anybody know a manufacturer that can make a camper enclosure for a pontoon? I'm going to recommend that you're going to be hard pressed to find one online. So here's what I'm going to recommend: is go to a custom canvas maker. Go to a custom canvas maker and say, hey, I've got this 22 Harris Cruise. I want it built like this. It's really the only way you're going to find exactly what you're looking for. And what they can do, the guy in our area, Castleman Canvas, if you happen to be in the Charlotte area near Lake Norman and Lake Wiley, he brings his horse trailer. It's got a sewing machine. It's got all his rolls of fabric, everything he needs. And he comes, he measures it out. You tell him exactly what you want. I want a zipper here. I want isinglass windows here. I want these to roll up. I want those to be one piece. And together, you and the custom canvas guy create exactly what you want. I need a double bimini, or we're just going to build it off a single bimini. And he'll sew in the zippers, and they can do everything exactly as you want. And that's really going to be the only way to get that custom camper enclosure, because there's just too many variables between boat to boat to have somebody mass produce a pontoon camper enclosure. It just isn't going to fit. And he can put the snaps in, it'll fit exactly. And it's going to be, you're going to get the best out of it by doing that. And frankly, it's $2,500, $3,000, depending on exactly how you have it done. If you were to, even if you do that with the custom canvas, like just a cover, a tarp, they're not that much more expensive to have a local guy do it, but it fits your boat perfectly. And that's why I recommend that to a lot of people. Just talk to some marinas, talk to some dealers, say, hey, who do you recommend for canvas? And there's probably somebody in your area. If they can come to you, great. You might have to load the boat up and take it to them, depending on where you're at. But that's what I would do. That's what I would look to do. Want to check out a 95 Bayliner Flight Series. Not bad, a bit spendy. Let's see. I don't know that boat. So what are we going to do? 195. Okay, so the Flight Series has the tower, I'm guessing, is what is meant by that. Yeah, F13. Reason for selling: kids grown and moved out. Time to change boating styles. Looking for help retrieving my MMSI number. It's in there, but can't get Standard Horizon to display it. I would have to do some serious digging. I don't know off the top of my head, but number off So couple of things. Oh, here's a video. This is what you need. Sailing Vagabond. These guys have a great channel. They're there's another Vagabond that's like one of the biggest sailing guys. This is on an ICOM. So you might want to check out that video. You can also, depending on Neil, where you, and welcome, you look like a new name as well. I don't recognize your name, but you can also go back to MMSI where you registered it, unless the concern is you mistyped it in. That can be a challenge to get that all readjusted. But if you go to wherever you registered the MMSI number, you should have a username and login that you can access it and get that as well. But I have to set it, reset. Here's how to reset the number on an HS. So I don't know exactly what you got. Okay, so that's resetting it. But that service at Standard Horizon email address, this is UK. You have to find the US version of that, but that might be another way to go. It's stored somewhere, right? So the serial number for your radio and that request code that seemed like just a couple menu buttons, and I think that should put you on the right track for it. If you can't go back to the original login and find that history. So, and if you're have an old number on there and you need to reset it, then this video is gonna help you on that too. So hopefully that's helpful for you. It's how to reset the MMSI number on the Standard Horizon HX890 is the name of that video from YAESU UK is the channel. So you get the right one. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Neil. 20 to 24. I would say, Mark, as you hit that 24 mark, you're going to have a better selection of them. There's going to be more manufacturers that make a 24-foot dual console than that make a 20-foot dual console. They just Stingray. Yeah, Stingray's another one. Thank you. Dual console. So a 19, 20, 21, 23, and 26 on the dual console side. So that is, let's see here. Yeah, that's going to be another one, and they've made those. So looking in the age range, I think you'll find those as well. in that age range. My phone went dead. Not sure if I missed your reply to my question about the Virgo man. I did answer your question. I'll give you the short answer. You can go back and listen to the long answer, but find a custom canvas guy in your local area. So if you just type in, we'll say Charlotte custom canvas, Carolina custom canvas, you'll find them listed online. But what's even better is most of these guys that have been doing canvas have been doing it for a long time, and they don't need websites. They got more business that they can handle. So you're going to be better off calling a marina, calling a boatyard, calling a dealer and saying, hey, who's the best custom canvas guy? And once you get the same name 3 or 4 times, that's the one that you want. And that's how you're going to get the best camper canvas, because you're not going to find one that's mass produced. You're not going to find one online that is going to work for you, because they're all so different, and it's nearly impossible to get them to match up. So custom canvas guy, and they're going to do a much better job. And it's, $2,500 to $3,000 to get started. That's kind of the ballpark that I would say. All right, that'll get you the basics. If you can do $5,000-$6,000 depending on how much isinglass you want in there, how many panels. Is it just the back bimini? Is it a 10-foot bimini and you're doing that, or are you doing a double bimini and you're truly doing a fully enclosed pontoon? That's going to be on the more expensive side. And then you can go back and listen to the replay and listen to the rest of it. All right, guys. Well, we are at an hour 47. I've got to run my oldest daughter down. She's dog sitting for some neighbors. I got to run her down to their house, and so she can let little Lucy out. And I appreciate you guys hanging with me, as I probably wasn't on my my best game tonight, but it was a good one. It was a fun one. Check out the Boater Bootcamp if you're new to boating. Check out the Boat Buyer's Toolkit if you're buying. If you don't have that toolkit, get it. It's very, very helpful in your search, especially when you get to the demo phase, and just kind of making sure you don't overlook something because it's the first time you're going through the process. And then when you get the boat, make sure you get that Boater Bootcamp. There's information in there that will help save you from making a mistake, an avoidable mistake. And as they say, break out another 1,000. Mistaken boating can be very, very expensive. So, and dangerous. So check those out. Those are both free. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you guys next week. Thanks for joining, everybody. Take care.